Connection podcast with Alvin Reed, Bradford Bruns, and Marty Jenkins on 101 ESPN.
It is indeed downright beastly out there, but fear not, we have good news, a little treat, something to which to warm up nicely, especially if you are a supporter of the black and gold. Greetings, everybody, and welcome into 2025's debut episode of the College Football Connection. Bradford Bruns riding with you, my guys Marty Jenkins and Alvin Reed. They will be along later in the week in what is sure to be still our winter palace here in Creve Coeur. First and foremost, wherever you are out there, if you are enjoying the content the 101 ESPN YouTube channel is providing to you, or listening courtesy of 101ESPN.com, no matter the setting, no matter the venue, hope that you are safe and sound first and foremost. And maybe, just maybe, these extenuating circumstances will allow you to parlay some of those things into a slightly longer holiday break entering 2025. Wouldn't that be nice? We have a couple of nice developments into which to delve, of course, as we move along during this version of the program. Quick hitting style, and at the same time, we do acknowledge that this weekend is typically reserved for the National Football League. Week number 18, wrapping up that regular season, and we still have NFC and AFC permutations through which to sort. Those things will work themselves out very shortly. We are enthusiastic about all of those developments to come throughout the rest of the month on 101 ESPN. In the here and now, though, it is about your lead story stemming from the University of Missouri on the heels of that Music City Bowl verdict over Iowa, 27-24 on Monday. And yes, you will get a little more content along those lines as well at the tail end of this show. MU today, early this morning on Sunday, lands a major portal prize. You're talking about Jalen Catalon. Most recently with UNLV in 2024, he was a linchpin in the secondary of the former Mizzou coach Barry Odom. 5 interceptions, countless instances of wreaking havoc going into opposing teams' backfields, and now he is bound for Faurot Field. Coach Eli Drinkwitz, defensive coordinator Corey Batoon get a real one in this regard. Somebody who just a few seasons ago, this young man was highly recruited, highly prized, and renowned coming out of high school. He went to the University of Arkansas initially for a couple of seasons, found his way to Austin, Texas, so he played big-time football there for the Longhorns, and then just last season, of course, for UNLV. So in addition to the obvious ball-hawking tendencies, and you love those, this is somebody who is not afraid whatsoever to lay that proverbial wood. And if there were one position group, quite honestly, this is not exactly a huge proclamation, I understand, but that could be nitpicked to excess for the Tigers entering 2024. And yes, there were strides down the stretch, but still, that secondary had gaping holes on occasion. You lost a lot of NFL caliber talent in the likes of Pride Jr., Deloche. They were representative at different points during the season, but to add somebody with the veteran-laden experience of Jalen, for that matter, 1 year of college eligibility remaining, and yet he has already played 6 at that level. It is tremendous. It is a huge coup. And at the same time, it's not just about that addition for MU. Oh, no. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, Stephen Hall, formerly of Washington State, a team captain there in the Pacific Northwest, he had played 3 seasons at the JUCO level, 2 seasons with the Washington State Cougars. He's a cornerback. He commits as well as the 14th member at that time of Missouri's portal class. So yes, some losses specifically from that much ballyhooed freshman class, but Missouri has been able to reload in a major way in recent weeks. So credit to Eli Drinkwitz and his various coaching staff members of the program to shore up some of the presumed deficiencies from this past season and moving forward. It's going to be a lot of fun. August 30th, can we get there any sooner? Central Arkansas, we know you're coming to Faurot Field. We have to wait a bit along those lines, but we won't have to wait for much longer when it comes to the heavy hitters of the CFP variety. We are down, ladies and gentlemen, to the Final Four, and the semifinal action will begin on Thursday. You're talking about Notre Dame and Penn State. Both of these programs were highly impressive just a few days ago. Notre Dame was more of that trendy upset pick to knock off Georgia, especially when you knew that the Bulldogs would have to go with Gunnar Stockton at QB instead of the injured Carson Beck in that round number 2. So Notre Dame gets it done, beating Indiana, knocking off the Bulldogs to boot, and then Penn State. So this is the first matchup. Remember, first matchup on Thursday, Orange Bowl style. Penn State as well. In a contest that at times looked fairly close against Boise State, but by the same token, the Broncos were simply outclassed in quarter number 4. The Nittany Lions, I would contend, have looked more impressive than anybody else in the field, but they will get that opportunity to truly demonstrate the bona fides on Thursday night. And it's not just Notre Dame and Penn State. No, the Blue Bloods continue to roll forward, because Friday, in a game that you will hear on 101 ESPN, it is Texas and Ohio State. It wasn't as though the Buckeyes on New Year's Day escaped Oregon in the vaunted rematch. No, OSU, Ryan Day, to his credit, that program proceeded to lay waste to the number 1 team in the nation. Will Howard, does he have motivation galore in this one as well? Not only did he hook up with the sensational freshman Jeremiah Smith for more than 160 yards in the first half alone against the Ducks. No, he has motivation on his mind, because when he was previously at Kansas State, don't forget the transfer there from Manhattan, the only team he did not vanquish as a member of the Big 12, the Texas Longhorns. So the Longhorns didn't exactly look stout, as we understand, down the stretch versus Arizona State on New Year's Day in the game that kicked all of it off. Scadaboo kind of had his way with the interior, that stout Texas defensive line, but the Longhorns survived. They advanced thanks to 3 TDs from Quinn Ewers. Is he going to be able to replicate that performance in this incredibly intriguing quarterback matchup? I'm very fascinated to see how it all plays out. Don't forget coverage of the Cotton Bowl Final Four, Texas and Ohio State. It gets underway at roughly 6 to 6:30 on Friday on 101 ESPN. But as we round out this edition, an abbreviated, abridged one at that of the College Football Connection, don't forget Marty and Alvin. They'll be back with me later in the week, live here in studio in Creve Coeur. We have to get to a bit of a recap with respect to MU taking care of business in the Music City versus Iowa. It was another Music City Bowl appearance for the Hawkeyes, and they jumped out to an extremely impressive start in the first quarter. But before long, Brady Cook had his way at the controls. One final climactic start for number 12, and we were fortunate enough to do an extended post-game show on 101 ESPN following the play-by-play that was held by Kevin Winter and company on ESPN Radio. So, to conclude today's show, before we bid you adieu and wish you the best as far as staying safe and warm out there in the audience, hear a little bit about that immediate reaction from Mizzou notching back-to-back double-digit win campaigns. Eli Drinkwitz and company talk about a foundation. You talk about trying to strengthen that brotherhood and cultivate that identity in mid-Missouri. The Tigers presumably well on their way. Here is just a taste of how it went down on Monday, a year in review, if you will, for the Tigers. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Excited to participate in the Music City Bowl. Our team has had an excellent week of practice so far, and done a really. They're really excited about the opportunity.
They got to go
4th and inches,
and they got to get the first down here. Sullivan's going to go under.
It's taking way too much time off the clock.
109. Sullivan rolls to the left. He stood up. Brendan Sullivan has stood up. The Missouri sideline erupts. Missouri sideline erupts. Dalen Cardell
about outthinking yourself. Missouri, in these situations, they like to submarine as a defensive line. Brandon Sullivan tries to pick and choose his gap and gets hit and met for no gain.
Sullivan went, he tried to go left side.
Make the line again. There's a turnover on down. First down.
And that'll do it.
It was a bittersweet symphony in many respects down the stretch, but in the end, was that ever some beautiful music in Nashville, Tennessee. Good afternoon, St. Louis. Bradford Bruns with you live from our studio in Creve Coeur, 521 in the Lou. As you just heard moments ago, it was Missouri 27, Iowa 24 in the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl. The Tigers get to 10 victories after all, now notching back-to-back double-digit win campaigns for just the third time in program history, and that is the first such occasion without somebody named Gary Pinkel at the helm of the program. Eli Drinkwitz getting it done today, led as per usual by the senior quarterback Brady Cook in his final college action. The defense was astounding down the stretch, and we will get into great detail over the next hour and change about the special teams exploits and heroics courtesy of the freshman, Mr. Craig. What a game really from start to finish as we welcome you in here to this special presentation of the College Football Connection. We do have Monday Night Football in a little over an hour right here on your home for the National Football League 101 ESPN. It will be Detroit still trying to lock down that number one seed in the NFC North, taking on San Francisco. But in the here and now, what an affair to recap. And this is more of a soapbox, kind of a side, non sequitur sort of issue, if you will. But if you were of the opinion entering today, after some of the bold action that you saw over the course of the weekend, some of the uninspiring results even from round number one of the college football playoff, and you were questioning yourself, what's the level of merit here to be found in so many of these bowl games? If you sat down, if you took it in on the television today or listened right here to Kevin Winter, the play-by-play man on 101 ESPN, you were absolutely galvanized for 60 minutes of football. Now, it was an offensive explosion and a surprising one at that, with which to begin the proceedings. The over-under in this game as Iowa and Missouri locked horns in the Music City Bowl. This was a matchup kind of years in the making, if you will. These two teams were supposed to have gotten after it back in 2020. COVID forced the cancellation of that exhibition per se, but in 2024, talk about closing out the year in style. That is exactly what happened. Now, it wasn't exactly the greatest set of circumstances from MU from the very beginning, because the opening kickoff, Iowa actually, yes, won the toss, opted to defer. So you were thinking, can Cook establish a little bit of rhythm right off of the bat, right? Well, the Hawkeyes, as is their wont, quite frankly, proceeded to lay that wood for which they are known right out of the gate. Marquise Johnson, the kick returner, absolutely popped at the 9-yard line, and you wondered, albeit briefly, is that going to set the tone for the festivities to come? Cook was able to come out in scramble mode. He picked up a nice gain or two on the ground, but the opening drive did stall. The Mizzou wide receivers entering this game, you knew that you were not going to have Luther Burden III. He was present in the Music City. He was there at Nissan Stadium, the home of the Tennessee Titans, but he was watching, he was mentoring from the sideline as he prepares and continues to ramp up that preparation to become a would-be top 10, top 15 NFL draft pick in April. Nevertheless, the first major third down conversion actually went to the Hawkeyes. Brendan Sullivan in there at quarterback for Iowa. Well, he was showing not necessarily a surprising degree of mobility. This is somebody who during the season was able to get a lot of reps as Cade McNamara. He entered the year 2024 as the regular starter for Iowa. However, injuries struck McNamara before the game, opted to enter that transfer portal. Johnson, for that matter, actually NFL bound, we should note, a la Luther Burden. But Sullivan, the Northwestern transfer, he was definitely experienced entering this action, and he looked stout. He was actually a threat in the RPO game. Those RPO options helped him go 4 for 4 on the preliminary drive for 46 yards, actually. And then there was that opening toss from just a few yards out, as Iowa was the first team in this game to actually hit pay dirt.
Sullivan, I told you, he was 16 for 16 of red zone trips in weeks, 13 for 9. Play action pitch pass to Terrell Washington. Pat pass into the left side. Touchdown, Terrell Washington Jr. on the pat pass from Sullivan. And it's the Iowa Hawkeyes who strike first on the 6-yard touchdown.
Indeed, Iowa getting on the board first. What was the response going to be from MU? Cook nicely going through his progressions appeared to be especially sharp in spite of that month or so off in the same wind for both programs, so you couldn't really apply any favoritism in that regard. Beginning, though, to find Weiss and Marquise Johnson down the field in rapid succession for individuals out there in Como, the STL area, around the region who wanted to see more of this young man throughout the season. Where has he been? We'll get to the final statistics in our next segment here of the College Football Connection Music City Bowl recap special, but Johnson was all over the field. He was featured prominently, and you anticipated as much, I think, in the absence of Luther Burden III. But then the scrambling definitely took effect for number 12. He was decisive throughout the festivities in that regard. He got into the second level of the Iowa defense, and the game plan from the very beginning was pretty clear to see what Kirby Moore, the offensive coordinator, truly wanted to do, really passing to set up the run, and there wasn't a lot of room with which to maneuver, especially from a zone read standpoint. Those classic patented stretch plays with Nate Noel, they were not exactly emphasized to the same degree that we have seen throughout the regular season, but a dart is fired to Marquise Johnson. Again, Weiss comes up with a huge 21-yard catch. Mizzou is moving ever closer to the end zone, and then a very familiar source responsible for the first 6 points compiled by MU on this afternoon.
Missouri has it at the near hash. Brady Cook stands in the pocket, throws backside of the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! Field! Weiss Jr. An 8-yard touchdown reception, and we're an extra point away from having this game tied.
And tied it was 7-7, moving deeper into the first quarter. And just moments later, you didn't have to wait long for the next explosive play in this game. Again, who would have thought with these two teams in a game that had an over-under prediction of 40.5 points, just moments later, that all-important third phase of the game, Iowa struck first in that capacity. Craig boots it away. Here's a dynamic return for you.
Caden Weegan back deep to receive. He's going to bring it out of his end zone. Comes to the near side right, 10, 15, 20, 25. He's up across the 30. Down the left sideline, he's got a lane, one blocker, 35, 40, 45, Caden Weegan to the house, 100-yard kickoff return for Iowa. His second special teams touchdown of the season.
Yeah, earlier in the season, 4-8 when Iowa, Weegan had picked up a score on a punt return, the touchdown in that capacity. So Missouri, your move once again. As the first quarter winds to a close, the Tigers continue to rack up the yards, but predominantly through the air, the intermediate stuff. Really not over the top, at least in the early going, but extremely peculiar. When you looked at the box score, I was here in the studio, and I was closely monitoring, all right, exactly how many totes are Carroll and Noel, the two-headed monster in the backfield, both of them opting to play in this game, not opting out. How many are they getting? Because Cook was frequently taking off, but at the end of 15 minutes, Noel and Carroll had combined for the grand total of 2 rushing attempts. Even Marquise Johnson had a rushing tote for that matter, but Brady Cook, 7 carries for 33 yards, and the passing numbers, he was 7 of 8 at that point, with Mizzou on the move again for 104 yards. Weiss had 57 of those. Johnson had 30 plus at that juncture as well. And after the opening stanza, it was nearly 200 yards of total offense to take into consideration for both programs combined. And almost as soon as the second quarter started, it was time to find Johnson again, this time to hit pay dirt.
Big offensive lineman, the 6th lineman, Javen Richardson, into the game, so they're going jumbo package. Brady Cook out of the shotgun, pistol formation, pulls it back. Here comes the ball, near side, wide open. It is caught. Marcus Johnson, was he in bounds? Yes, he was. Cook's second TD pass of the game, 70 yards out. And the Missouri Tigers are once again an extra point away from tying this game up.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the force and the precision in conjunction, working in tandem with one another that Cook was applying on his passes in that first half. He was ready to go. He looked every part of the senior upperclassman trying to guide his team, pilot his team to one more victory as a collegiate player. Now, the game's first punt, it actually didn't occur until the 10:25 mark of quarter number 2. The offense did begin to slow down. It had to, right, out of necessity. You weren't going to see the two teams from these particular conferences exchanging points at that fast and frenetic rate for the entirety of this tilt. Although, for Missouri, if you were an enthusiast of the black and gold, you were somewhat pessimistic when it came to a few mental errors that were threatening to make the D, Corey Batoon's unit, perhaps come apart at the seams down the stretch in that second quarter. Jeremiah Beasley, one of the many individuals today receiving more time, more reps, more snaps, with, of course, Chuck Hicks being one of the few individuals to opt out for Mizzou. You knew that Beasley would be getting quite a bit of time. Rodriguez as well at the second level of that defense in the linebacking core. But a late hit was assessed, and then with Iowa marching inside of the 20-yard line with scant minutes to play in quarter number 2, flag ends up getting examined for a potential targeting infraction. Now, after a few minutes of conversation, the officiating crew did not rule indeed that he had committed said violation, but the Hawkeyes, they were moving the football again and really gouging Missouri on the ground. We saw this at numerous points during the season, especially coming out of the end of, well, a first half or two, whether it was in Columbia or on the road, College Station. You recall that in not so fine of a manner. But it was Moulton on the ground, not Caleb Johnson, not somebody who's going to be drafted in April as a potential day 1 or day 2 pick, really picking up the lion's share of the yardage, and this was a huge run to put Iowa in premier position to go up by even more entering halftime.
Moulton handoff, 40, 35, 30. Moulton makes the cut. Midfield, 10, 5. Taken down inside the 5. Kamari Moulton. But it's first and goal for Iowa. They'll mark him at the 3. Corey Flagg and Toronto Pride finally brought him down. Gain of 38.
Yeah, that was the long run of the day without question in Missouri's eventual 27-24 victory. Things didn't look particularly great at that point, not when you also had Brendan Sullivan using the wheels, albeit in an unconventional way, rumbling, stumbling, bumbling, and just going all over the field.
Sullivan stays in, 1:11 to go. Second and goal from the 10. Sullivan looks near side, now goes to his progression, rolls far side left, plenty of room to run. He pulls up, he's going to have to keep it himself. 5, now he cuts back. Where's he going? He's running all over the field. Brendan Sullivan dives in the goal line, walloped at the 1. Brendan Sullivan walloped at the 1. It's a 9-yard run. He ran about 50.
I think 100.
And there's 49 seconds to go on the clock, and it'll be 3rd down and 1.
It was inevitable. It was none other than Moulton being able to salt away this possession with a score for the Hawkeyes.
Moulton is now back in the game. Sullivan's going to go out of the shotgun. 3rd and goal from the half-yard line. They put 55 seconds on the clock here in the first half. We're tied up, Missouri and Iowa, 14 apiece. Only the second quarter. Sullivan, man in motion. Handoff to Moulton. He goes off left guard into the end zone. Touchdown, Kamari Moulton. 1-yard touchdown run for Kamari Moulton, his 3rd TD run of the season. And the Iowa Hawkeyes are back in front. They put up 20 here in this opening half.
The extra point was good, so Iowa actually going on top at intermission by the score of 21-14. When you talk about yardage that was compiled, we mentioned that figure of 200 all told, nearly 200 in the first quarter. Well, these two programs combined to go over 400 through the first 30 minutes of play. Rock'em sock'em, an unexpected offensive barn burner at that point. as of then. 15 first downs through the first 30 minutes for Mizzou, 11 for Iowa. And Missouri also had the edge, and a considerable one at that. In time of possession, had held the ball for 18 of the game's first 30 minutes. Brady Cook's statistics were still stellar at that point. He was 10 of 17. He had 140 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also 60 yards on 10 totes on the ground. But Iowa did a much better job down the stretch in quarter number 2 of getting into those lanes and applying a little more pressure against a somewhat compromised Missouri offensive line. This line has been without Connor Tollison, the junior, for weeks. He was not out there today. His season ended, of course. Drake Heismeyer did a bang-up job once again, but still not the one, not the captain of this O-line. And perhaps more important than anything, Armand Membu, the right tackle, also had opted out, declared for the NFL draft. He is rising up so many boards at this point, could well work himself into the equation as far as that first-round conversation is concerned. And I thought, as I reflected on the proceedings here in the studio at halftime, that maybe that was the biggest reason as to why this Tigers program overall wasn't exactly willing to call an influx of plays of the zone variety, the stretch plays to the right side, because where did Missouri have its biggest amount of success in that capacity all season? With Membu leading the charge, leading the way, and pushing, getting into that second level to be able to set things up, set them in motion for Noel, etc. Nonetheless, Missouri, of course, did have to yield to Iowa to begin quarter number 3. The Hawkeyes returning that opening kickoff, and fortunately for MU, it wasn't an outright disaster this time around, even though Wheaton had another exemplary return there. Iowa did have to punt, pinned Missouri extremely deep back in its own end, and a very unfortunate turn of events materializes for Missouri. In the last couple of minutes of that quarter, Theo Weiss had been struck in an extremely hard manner. It was a hit to the upper body, eventually after a conversation on the field among the officiating crew members. It wasn't ruled to be a targeting offense there, but I wondered at first, were you talking about helmet to helmet or just something that afflicted Weiss with respect to that upper body? The word leaks out from the television coverage on ESPN that Weiss evidently dealing with an arm issue. He was not going to return from that point. Well, what does that do? It puts even more of the onus on a Marquise Johnson. We hadn't seen much of Manning to that point. Who was going to emerge as the secondary target for Brady Cook? Cook himself, he found himself in a 2-for-10 rut as Missouri can't take advantage of getting the ball back, must punt, and then, wouldn't you know it, Mitchell Walters, he gets flagged on the ensuing punt. Eddie Kelly gets a second roughing the passer penalty for Missouri. Even though the Hawkeyes, they proceeded to punt as well. You're dropping balls on offense, and your defense once again has to figure out a way to step up, and step up it did. There's somebody on this team, along with Christian Williams, no doubt about it, and Johnny Walker Jr. Not only were we talking about his banner streak entering this contest of 6 straight games with at least half of a sack recorded. This is somebody as a team captain, as a senior who has spent all of his time, poured the equity and sweat into this program. He was just named as an honoree, received that invitation to the East-West Shrine game on the heels of this Music City Bowl. He was tasked with being able to make a big play to do something to maybe flip the momentum in this game. And Walker, in the third quarter, about halfway through, was able to get that rush off of the edge, as we have seen countless times during his MU career.
On the far hash, going right to left in this third. Brendan Sullivan has it, 3rd and goal from the 11. Stands in the pocket. Now he's flushed. Now he's hit. Now he's sacked. Johnny Walker, who had 7.5 sacks in the season, gets his first in the game, and he takes him all the way back to the 20. The loss of 9.
Yeah, first defensive highlight of note for Mizzou, really for either team in this game. And offensively, you receive the ball once again in the latter portion of the third, and you must get something going at this point. Cook, he does precisely that. About 5 minutes remaining in quarter number 3, I said to myself, this 3rd and 10 situation, who's going to step up and it's none other than Daniel Blood. We saw him in fits and spurts during the regular season, one of the understudies for Luther Burden III, along with Mekhi Miller. Miller was not available today. He is in the portal, so Blood comes up with the clutch reception and then trying to go down the field, opening things up. Wouldn't you know it, Marquise Johnson, that connection, that rapport, Cook has spoken of it so often in the defensive meeting room for Mizzou, where all of the pressers are held following contests. And he talks about how there's perhaps not a better straight-up fly pattern guy in all of college football than Marquise Johnson. Now, he wasn't utilized to the same degree in 2024. You want to continue to see him expand that route tree. And he did exactly that today, although the catch for more than 40 yards and another one ensuing that as well put Missouri on the doorstep. Cook calling his own number on the fake toss, gets into the end zone. His celebration is underway, but wait. Another flag comes out, and the pair of youngsters in the wide receiving room, Johnson and Manning, they are flagged for an illegal shift. It wipes out the touchdown. However, it was just a matter of time before Manning got his hands on the football, but not in the sense of making a catch.
Brady Cook out of the gun. Little jet sweep to Manning. Trying to get to the edge. Manning, 4-yard touchdown run is good. Joshua Manning, 4-yard TD run. And the Missouri Tigers are down by 4 with an extra point pending. 1:49 to go here in the third quarter.
Closing that gap in quarter number 3 as we roll through the highlights from the Music City Bowl on 101 ESPN. Bradford Bruns with you. Moving into quarter number 4, Iowa, I wouldn't say had an opportunity to salt it away. However, time was definitely on the side of the squad helmed by Kirk Ferentz. Brendan Sullivan had been good. He had been able to avoid mistakes throughout this tilt, and then inexplicably trying to force a throw into tight coverage around midfield in somebody who has been much maligned for the better part of 2024 in the secondary for Missouri. If you are really to take umbrage, I would say, with any unit, any particular group, personnel grouping on that side of the football for Mizzou, it has been the secondary in 2024. And you knew that you were experiencing losses after last season when Abrams Drain and many others go to the NFL or run out of eligibility. You need to have other guys step up. And in his biggest spot of the year, the STL native and transfer from Clemson, he answered the call.
Sullivan stands in the pocket, looks, comes near side, trying to evade one, throws, passes, batted away, and it's intercepted. The pass is picked off. Turiano Pride Jr. picks it off. The pass was intended for Reese Vanderzee, and Pride jumped in front and took it away near midfield.
Turiano Pride Jr. doing the thing, coming up with the pick. It's been a long time since we were able to say that, all the way back in week number 1, Missouri. Murray State, you remember the game, you remember the route, setting up Missouri to do something offensively and maybe tie this one up or go ahead. So Missouri is given renewed life, but things again threatening to spiral out of control. Iowa, though, gets too frisky in its own right. This game progressively got more and more chippy down the stretch. Jamal Roberts on 3rd and 20. Yes, Missouri had backed itself up into a 3rd and 20 scenario. He makes the catch, tries to get out of bounds. He's short of the first down. He is not able to move the sticks. But Iowa is flagged for the late hit along the Missouri sideline, a fresh set of downs with which Cook was able to operate to put MU in field goal position. Enter the freshman in a major spot. Could he come through with his 5th kick this season of more than 40 yards successfully?
Chance to tie the game. Snap, spot, kick up on its way. And it is good. 51-yard field goal for Blake Craig. And we are tied with 10-10 to go here in the 4th quarter. We're starting anew.
If you thought that Turiano Pride endured some tough times during 2024, The same could apply to the freshman, Blake Craig. Yes, the huge leg, we understood that, the leg for days, but a lot of medium-range field goal attempts were missed at both Memorial Stadium and on the road. So redemption in that moment for the freshman kicker Craig, but still, as you heard, courtesy of Kevin Winter on 101 ESPN just moments ago, a long way to go, right? Sullivan has another chance. He has his chance for redemption. Iowa's going back down the field, but it doesn't last for very long. Missouri is able to get the football back, and Brady Cook, he's finding individuals you wouldn't necessarily expect whatsoever. Johnson had to temporarily leave this game as he was either shaken up or experiencing a bout of cramps of his own there in the Volunteer State. So Tavoris Jones, the rarely used Tavoris Jones, pressed into action in this game for a few snaps, primarily because Kewan Lacey, another freshman who had been on the roster, who had been getting more time, he opted to hit the portal. He is going elsewhere. He is headed altogether to Ole Miss. So Tavoris Jones not only gets a carry, but comes up with a big catch out of the backfield. And then Logan Muckey with his first reception of the season as Missouri gets inside of the 50-yard line of the Iowa Hawkeyes. The stage is set, even though you had some miscommunication with the receivers, with the tight ends. Jordan Harris with a drop as he filled in today for Brett Norfleet, who had undergone surgery after the conclusion of the regular season. There's 4:42 remaining in this ball game. Iowa's defense, regardless, is on its heels, and the stage is set again for the freshmen. Now, the first field goal attempt moments prior to this one, was from 51 yards out. So, Mr. Craig, the freshman, what could you possibly do for an encore?
Play clock at 4, at 3, at 2, snap, spot, tick up, on its way, drifting, down the middle, Blake Craig, 56-yard field goal with 4:36 to go, and Missouri has the lead.
Nevertheless, it wasn't over from there. Iowa gets the ball once more, and then there was a gimme third down conversion attempt with 3:25 to go. The drop by the Hawkeyes, afflicted with some of the same issues that Cook and company experienced for Mizzou. So Ferretz opts to actually punt the ball away with more than 3 minutes remaining. Yes, Iowa had 2 timeouts remaining at its disposal, plus the 2-minute warning, if you will. But I was incredibly skeptical of that decision-making process. So Missouri has an opportunity to run out the clock, right? Eli Drinkwitz has a crucial decision of his own to make at the 2-minute mark as Brady Cook. Kirby Moore opts to keep it primarily in his hands. 2 rushing attempts out of the 3 plays subsequently that were called. With 2 minutes to go, Missouri is faced with a 4th and short situation. Eli Drinkwitz says we're going to play it safely in this regard, and we are going to punt. Luke Bauer, normally reliable, in all likelihood his final game in the black and gold. He shanks the punt. Iowa gets decent field position. But on the very next play, Johnny Walker Jr. gets home yet again, his 2nd sack of the evening. There's a pass across the middle. It makes it a very manageable 4th and 1 situation. Iowa, though, gets flustered, definitely flummoxed. Sullivan's trying to get his team, trying to get his offense to the line. And yet, it's a hurried snap. It is a botched sneak situation and stuffed at the line of scrimmage. Sullivan goes down. The Iowa Hawkeyes' hopes of winning another Music City Bowl go down with the tackle that you heard from Carnell at the top of the show. Missouri wins this one 27-24 with Cook in victory formation, getting to 10 wins on the season, 10-3 in 2024, not quite reaching the lofty heights of the 11-2 campaign from a season ago, but another incredibly representative showing for a program that wants to continue to build on this momentum.
Thanks for listening to the College Football Connection podcast on 101 ESPN.